The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Leon Charney report. We have an outstanding guest with us. You saw him a couple of months ago. He was on and he wrote a book called Bitter Scent, which was the story of L'Oreal, which is a cosmetic company that was basically owned by indirectly and directly by Nazis. And you might recall that I was to be given an honor by a Jewish organization, we'll hold it nameless, and I rejected that offer because they had honored L'Oreal about a couple of months before. Sometimes money gets in the way of idealism, and Michael Bar-Zohar, is on our show, and he is a former member of Knesset, a member of the inner circle of the Labor Party, and an omnivorous writer, ubiquitous writer, voracious writer. He writes unbelievably. Official biographer of David Ben-Gurion. Spent about 11 years or 10 years with David Ben-Gurion, which has got to be terrific, a terrific part of one's life to sit with David Ben-Gurion, the founder of the Jewish state. And he's written a book today called Beyond Hitler's Grasp, The Heroic Rescue of Bulgaria's Jews. Now, Mickey was born in Bulgaria, and very few people know about this extraordinary feat that the Bulgarian government saved 50,000 Jews during World War II. And no one knows about it. Everybody talks about Denmark, Sweden, all the Scandinavian companies, but Michael has written a book, and he's gotten terrific reviews on it, about how the Bulgarian people and the king of Bulgaria saved 50,000 Jews. Not one Jew was eliminated or assassinated because of the Nazis. So we're going to talk at length about that, and we'll get into what's going on in the Middle East. He's an expert on the Middle East, and he knows the inner workings of what's going on in the Israeli democracy, and especially the Labor Party. Good friend of Shimon Peres, worked for Yitzhak Rabin. I think he also worked for Mr. Dayan, did you? Press Secretary for Moshe Dayan? I know my stuff with Mickey, believe me. Mickey, welcome. That's a hell of an introduction, you know, but it's all true. Yes, it is.
Definitely.
I was at a party last night for you, given by the Bulgarian ambassador, Consul General. It was mobbed. You couldn't get in.
Right.
They must love you.
Well,
you know, I did not know a lot about Bulgaria. I studied a little bit to interview you, but they were really terrific in terms of not allowing Jews to get killed over there.
Yes, that was very strange, but it's a unique case where you have a country in Eastern Europe which had almost no anti-Semitism.
How come?
Several reasons. First of all, the Bulgarians themselves, they grew, I can quote the report of the Nazi ambassador to Sofia, when he wrote in despair to Berlin, to Hitler, he said, these people, the Bulgarians, don't understand what racism is all about. He said they grew up with Turks, Greeks, Gypsies, Jews together.
Are you considered a Sephardic Jew?
Yes, we are Sephardic Jews in Bulgaria. We are what they call the pure Sephardic Jews, because we kept speaking the language, the Spanish language, the original language we brought from the Middle Ages, and singing their songs and lullabies, and all the tradition was based on the Spanish heritage. And the Bulgarians felt that the Jews were completely equal to them. Something was very unique about the Bulgarian Jews. They were, in general, not very rich people. Poor people. Most of them were poor, blue-collar workers.
What was the population during the war of Bulgaria?
About 6 million during the war.
And how many Jews? 50,000?
50,000, yes.
Each and every one got out and went to Israel?
Oh, yes. Well, about 92%. The old people in mixed marriages, or communists stayed behind.
And your grandfather was in the pharmaceutical business?
Yes.
And your father was a dentist?
That's true.
See, I know
everything about me. You're a dangerous man.
I know your background. And your mother and father have skipped 2 heartbeats when they left Bulgaria because they really felt comfortable there.
They loved the country. And you know, I remember that when we left Bulgaria, I was a child, my father's patients will come to him and say, "Doctor, why are you leaving?" And he would say, "Because we want to have our own country." And they would say, but this is your country, Bulgaria is your country, why do you want to go
Right.
away?
Right.
They felt very hurt by the fact that the Jews were leaving. And for years afterwards, they had a reproach to us, why did we leave the country, why didn't we stay with our friends?
One of the Bulgarian Jews married Yitzhak Shamir, the former Prime
That's
Minister
correct.
of Israel.
Shulamit Shamir,
Shamir
yes, she's
is
Bulgarian. Right.
So who was influential here, the government and the king?
Everybody. You see, first of all, the people could not discriminate the Jews. Second, all the main factors in the Bulgarian society, the intellectual elite, the lawyers' union, the workers, the church, the Bulgarian church was unbelievable. Yeah.
Helpful.
Unbelievable. There were all the princes of the Bulgarian church unanimous.
Catholic Church?
No, Orthodox.
Russian Orthodox?
Russian Orthodox. And they said, not one Jew will leave our country. They are our brothers, we're going to keep them. You had to read the minutes of their meetings and the letters they wrote to the king. And
you researched this for how many years?
Oh yes, for about 4 years.
Wow.
4 years.
There's one other book out on the Bulgarian Jews I read, and I forgot the name of the author. But
there was a book by Professor Frederick Charney.
Charney.
Right.
Right.
It was published in 72 or 73, so I didn't have access at the time.
Nobody has written
to
about
much
this.
of the material. Well, see, the problem was that those who saved the Bulgarian Jews were the church,
right,
the fascist party, who said we are fascists, we love Hitler, we love the Nazis, but don't touch our Jews.
Really?
And the king. So these three elements are the worst enemies of communism. So when the communists took over Bulgaria in
They didn't want to give them
1944,
credit.
of course not. So they said the Bulgarian people saved the Jews. They made it a kind of very vague story.
Wow.
Because they didn't want to release the truth. You see, the fascist party, or the pro-fascist majority in parliament, they supported Germany because Germany gave them back all these lands they had lost in the First World War. So thanks to Hitler, they got once again into Greater Bulgaria with chunks of Yugoslavia.
Did the Nazis occupy Bulgaria?
No,
finally?
they were invited.
They never
Bulgaria was, no, they did. Bulgaria was swarming with Nazis, of course. I was a kid.
This make a great movie, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
But it's the upside down.
You saw Nazis all over the street.
Of course, but there was not one moment when I or friends of mine, Jewish kids, were afraid of the Germans. We didn't associate
but knowing the German mentality, the Hitler and the Nazis, they didn't want to touch the Jews?
Of course they wanted.
But?
You see, there was one night, Leon, on the 9th of March 1943, when the first shipment of 8,000 Bulgarian Jews had to be taken to Treblinka,
right,
directly to extermination.
Right.
And the boxcars were waiting at the stations. And the Jews got orders to prepare 20 kilos per child, 40 kilos per adult, and to be ready that at midnight they're going to be taken to the station.
Right.
4 hours before, there was a revolt of the pro-fascist majority in the parliament, the church, and the king himself. And the king issued an order saying not one Jew leaves the country, in spite of the fact that he had a written agreement with Germany about delivering the Jews. And 4 hours before deportation, it was cancelled, and all the trains left empty.
So Bulgaria was part of the German...
Yeah, definitely. The king was a close friend of Hitler.
It's a crazy story, unbelievable.
More than that, Bulgaria was the only country in the Nazi camp.
They were an ally of Germany during the war.
Of course,
and they
full-fledged ally.
Yeah, that we know, but they
not only they saved Jews, they refused to break their diplomatic relations with the Russians. Could you imagine something more absurd than that? That in this Nazi capital, swarming with German troops, you have a German embassy and the Russian embassy. And the king would go out on his balcony in the evening and he would see the flags. The red flag of the Soviet Union and the swastika of Nazi Germany, all along the war. He claimed that Bulgaria had been liberated by the Russians, and the Bulgarian people would not accept.
I see what happened. The king made a deal to be an ally of the Nazis, and so they left him alone, they left him in place, sort of a good Mussolini. And his policy was, I'm not going to hurt the Jews. And he
had to navigate.
I heard he was a little bit of a weak guy, but
exactly, he was a very weak guy at the beginning. And at the beginning, he carried out an anti-Jewish policy, or he accepted an anti-Jewish policy. They passed the Nuremberg laws in Bulgaria. We had to wear tiny yellow stars, but we had to wear them. The property of the Jews of many Jews was confiscated, and then a commissariat for Jewish question was created. The Jews from Thrace and Macedonia, the new territories next to Bulgaria, were deported, But when the moment came to take the Jews from old Bulgaria, and the people started moving around and the elite said no, the king came back to his senses and he said, not one Jew leaves Bulgaria. And from this moment, this man who was, as you said, very rightly, very weak, hesitant man, he stood up to Hitler. Now, he was immediately called to Berchtesgaden, to the eagle's nest by Hitler, because Hitler always measured the loyalty of his vassals throughout Europe by the way they treated the Jews. And von Ribbentrop, his Minister of Foreign Affairs, yelled at King Boris of Bulgaria. He said, why didn't you send your Jews to Poland?
Yeah.
And the king said, well, first of all, my Jews are different from yours, he said. They're not like your Jews. My Jews are Spanish Jews. He used the word Spaniol. They're Spanish Jews that don't play the same role like Jews in your country. And Ribbentrop said, come on, a Jew is a Jew all the same. Because that's the report which he wrote after the meeting. And then he said, you must send your Jews, or the only solution for the Jewish problem is the final solution. And the king said, yes, but I need my Jews for road construction. I'm not going to send them away. And he came back to Bulgaria, and I have the minutes of this meeting. He called the prime minister, who was pro-Nazi, wanted to deport the Jews, and the Minister of Interior, another pro-Nazi who wanted to deport the Jews, and he told them, we are now going to mobilize all the Jewish men into work units, and by that we shall prevent their deportation to Poland.
Did they have an army, the Bulgarians?
Yes.
Any Jews in the army?
They were in the army until the war, and then they were in units, labor units inside the army. And when the German ambassador came, and all of a sudden he saw these Jews in Bulgarian uniforms with Jewish officers,
he passed out.
He started to yell, right? So they moved them away from the army. They belong now to the Ministry of Public Works.
Wow.
And they built roads, not very hardly. The German Secret Service immediately realized that was a trick, and they had to see the reports of the SS and Gestapo saying that's a stupid story. They're trying to fool us. They're not working in these camps. That's just a Bulgarian pretext to prevent sending them to Poland.
We got to cut for a break. We'll continue this riveting story by Michael Bar-Zohar, Beyond Hitler's Grasp. And you don't have to be Jewish or Bulgarian to read this book. It reads like a Tom Clancy novel. I mean, it's very intense. There's a woman in there. We'll talk about her in a minute, who is very involved in this whole process. It's a terrific. It's a drama, and someone will make a movie out of it, I'm sure. We'll be back in a minute.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish.
Back, we're with a very highly intelligent human being. His name is Michael Bar-Zohar. You've seen him before on the show. He's written a great book called Beyond Hitler's Grasp. It's the historic rescue of Bulgarian Jews. 50,000 got out alive. No Jews were killed. despite the fact that Bulgaria was an ally of the Nazis, and you can thank the king and a few other people. Who's the woman you talk about in there?
It's a fantastic story. This is a young Christian woman, very beautiful. She was the secretary, the private secretary of the Commissar for Jewish Question, who was a bloody Nazi, who wanted to send all the Jews...
The Commissar was a Nazi.
The Commissar, yes, to send all the Jews to Treblinka. She was not only the secretary, she was very deeply in love with him, and she became his secret lover. They had a very dramatic love affair.
I assume he was married.
No, he was divorced.
So they were secret lovers because...
Secret because in the atmosphere of the time, one couldn't afford a man of his stature to have an affair or love story with a secretary in his office. That was not done.
50 years later, history has changed.
I didn't say anything about that. And, but she was also a very moral woman. So she was torn between her loyalty to the government, her love to the Commissar, and her moral convictions that Jews are not to be mistreated. And this woman, during the day, was typing the secret orders for deportation and then spending time with her lover. At night, she would run to the houses of the Jewish leaders and warn them of the deportation. Not once, not twice, not 5 times. And she was the main source they had and the main advisor who told them, get ready, deportation is going to start, or get ready, there is a second plan for deportation in a few weeks, and that's what's going to happen. And she did everything possible. And then, of course, history is very ironical because she was arrested by the communists at the end of the war.
Really? As
his secretary and as his lover. They wanted to get through her to find him. He disappeared. When the communists took over Bulgaria, Belev, the Commissar for Jewish Question...
He wound up in Argentina.
No. It's even more ironical than that. But he disappeared and they captured her and they found his clothes in her apartment. And she had in her purse the secret agreement between Bulgaria and Germany for the deportation of the Jews. She carried it in her purse.
Wow.
So they took her, they beat her up, they interrogated her, they tortured her for months. And finally they put her on trial for belonging to this Nazi or fascist organization. And then there was this Jewish delegation that walked into the courtroom and said, you want to condemn her? She saved our lives.
So they saved her?
She was released, but following the tortures and the beatings, she died a year later, at the age of 30.
Wow.
While this man was actually, nobody knew at the time that he had been captured. The Commissar was captured on the Yugoslav border by a group of freedom fighters, of partisans, who recognized him. He was trying to run away to Austria. And they gave him to one of them who was Jewish. And they told him, you take the Commissar to Sofia. He said, sure. The moment they turned around, he shot him and killed him, threw him in the ditch, where he rot for years until the truth was found out.
Wow. But he was really anti-Jewish.
Oh, he was terrible.
It's not for this woman. Terrible. She saved him.
She saved him.
She should be in Yad Vashem, as one of the righteous Gentiles.
Definitely.
As
well as the head of the church. So we have several people like...
Are they in Yad Vashem, or you don't know?
Well, we just planted a forest, in Bulgaria, with their names on. We built this kind of memorial stones with their names of the people that saved. And of course, this deputy speaker of the Bulgarian parliament, Peshev, who was the one who triggered the entire objection to deportation. And this guy, Peshev, wrote a petition which must be studied by any school child. He wrote a petition to the Prime Minister against deportation. And he said, if we deport our Jewish minority, that will be a stain on the forehead of Bulgaria which will never be washed. We are a small country and our policy must be led and dictated by moral principles. So he went to his friends in the fascist majority and he got in 24 hours 43 signatures. About 40% of them signed the petition. And he handed it to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister was crazy. That was a revolt. He wrote in his diary, this is a revolt. Where have you seen in a Nazi country, allies of Germany, the 40% of the members of the ruling pro-fascist majority signing such a petition? Wow. And among them were the most pro-Nazi, the most virulent Nazi political leaders in Bulgaria who signed it. They said, we love Hitler, we admire Germany, but don't touch our Jews.
The Jewish agency was aware of everything in Bulgaria?
No.
They didn't know what was going on?
No, they didn't know. Nobody knew.
I mean, if they did, they could have told neighboring countries to send some Jews over there.
Bulgaria wouldn't have accepted them. Bulgaria was scared to death.
Really?
That if they King Boris knew very well that if he crossed a thin line, invisible line, and we believe that they killed him finally. You know,
how did he die, King Boris?
He went for his last visit to Germany in August 1943.
He never came back?
No, he came back. He met with Hitler in Rastenburg at the advanced headquarters of the Führer. And then Hitler, for the first time, asked him to send the Bulgarian army to fight against the Russians.
He needed people.
And the king said, no way. My people are not going to fight against the Russians. They had a terrible quarrel. The king came back, and 2 weeks later he died.
Nobody knows how.
Nobody knows how. We believe he had been poisoned. And that was not a punishment. But at the time, there were very persistent rumors that some of the king's closest advisors were negotiating a separate peace with the allies in Istanbul. And
treason.
Apparently Hitler
Betrayal.
wanted to prevent that from happening. The king died. It was very funny because they sent him doctors from Germany to take care of him when he was sick. And they submitted the report saying that it was a typical Balkanic death, and that he had exactly the same symptoms like another leader of the Balkans, John Metaxas, who had been the prime minister of Greece, who had been poisoned 2 years before. And the German ambassador told him, please don't write this in your report because we shall be accused. And until today, we believe that's the way the king died. And afterwards, there was a regent's council which continued to rule the country, and the king became his son, who was an infant, 5 years old, Simeon, who ruled for 3 years, and nothing changed. The policy of the king became a kind of moral state.
A president in Bulgaria?
They have a president in Bulgaria.
And a prime minister?
The prime minister, right.
Has he read your book?
Of course, yes.
Yeah?
Oh, yes. The president called me a few months ago. He came to a visit to the White House and to the Holocaust Museum, and he asked me to speak on behalf of Bulgaria at the Holocaust Museum about the rescue of the Bulgarian Jews.
Really?
He introduced me there, and we had a very, very interesting meeting, because for the first time somebody told them how it had happened in Bulgaria.
They have good relations with Israel now.
Yes,
Bulgaria.
Very good relations. That's
Is
true.
there any trade there between Bulgaria and Israel?
Yes, and we are now helping them in several fields. We are investing in Bulgaria.
They're very poor, though, Bulgaria.
Very poor. Bulgaria was a very successful agrarian country. About 75% of the economy before the war was agriculture. When the communists came, they tried, as you know, the idea of massive industrialization. They brought these thousands and thousands of people from the villages to the cities. The agriculture was destroyed. The industry did not work, and today they are in bad shape. It's a good country, very good country with very talented people. You see,
any Jews left in Bulgaria?
About 5,000, and we are bringing them now to Israel, all of them, because they live in very, very hard situations. And you see, this is not a third world country. They have a wonderful ballet, a wonderful opera, great theaters and museums.
Country.
It's a very cultured, intellectual country. They read huge quantities of books. But on the other hand, they can't afford. They have no money. Many people are hungry.
Really?
So this is a kind of contrast.
We're going to cut for a break, and we'll come back and continue our conversation with Michael Bar-Zohar. We'll ask him a few things about what's going on in Israel. He's in the know, so don't leave us. We'll be right back.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening, a book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
We're talking to Michael Bar-Zohar, who has written Beyond Hitler's Grasp, the heroic rescue of Bulgaria's Jews. And now we're going to ask him a few questions about what is going on in Israel. Michael is a former member of the Knesset. I think he was on the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee, Labor Party, and he's in the know of what's going on, and we'll find out. First of all, were you surprised that Bibi Netanyahu made Arik Sharon a foreign minister?
I think it was a very smart move, very good move. Because the fact is that Sharon now supported the peace agreement, and Sharon has the capacity, more than anybody else, to fight the extreme right in Israel about this peace process. And now in the cabinet, Sharon was one of the pillars of the peace process. That was very important.
So it was a smart move. You know Sharon a long time.
Oh, yes, yes. He was my commander in the paratroopers.
We
crossed the Suez Canal together.
Does he pass credibility tests?
Not always. Not always. That's very sporadic.
Sporadic.
Yes, but he's a fighter, and people trust him in Israel. People of his camp, of the right wing, do trust him. And if Sharon comes to sell them a peace process, they'll buy it much more from Sharon than from my party, from Shimon Peres, or from Ehud Barak.
What's happening with Shimon Peres? You're in touch with him all the time.
Yes, Shimon Peres is rather angry, and I understand he's angry.
At Ehud Barak.
He's angry at Ehud Barak. Is angry at the fact that he is unable today to carry out his policy for peace. And Shimon Peres, since '96, since the moment he lost the election, is all the time trying to create a government of national unity in Israel, which for him is the best thing. In this effort, he's supported very strongly by Sharon, and I believe that that's the right solution today, especially after...
Sharon is for a unity government?
Yes, definitely.
All right, but the guy who would be against it would be Yitzhak Mordechai, because he would lose his post.
I guess so, yes.
So
although Yitzhak Mordechai is the most moderate influence in the cabinet.
Moderate, but no one wants to live up his... they don't want to give up the post.
Of course, no, but today I said Mordechai has a very important role
to play. Do you think, Bibi passed the wide plantation agreement through the cabinet by a very slim margin. He got only 8 votes out of 17.
That's correct, yes.
Many abstentions. That's a pretty weak government, isn't it?
Well, first of all, he passed the agreement in the government and nobody resigned. So we have to always look at the bottom line.
Good point.
They stay there. So all this, if you remember, all these threats that if he passes it, we're going to resign.
Rabbi Shapiro from the NRP,
we should show him
and Yalom.
What happened. The bottom
they all
line
stayed.
is
we abstain and we stay.
We stay, exactly. So he passed it now, and the Knesset is going to pass it with dramatic majority.
Yeah. By the way, it was predicted on the show that no one from the National Religious Party would ever leave. Nah, they like too many kiddush, too much. They like that. And he's a very heavy guy from the National Religious Party, Yalom. He's pretty aggressive at the cabinet table with food. So I didn't think he was going. I mean, I'm being a little facetious here,
He
but
stayed for the voting.
I was in Israel during this Y plantation business,
Right.
and when there were big threats, Rabbi Shapiro from National Religious Party and Yalom, and everybody's running and going and jumping, at the end of the day, you caught it and you said it correctly. No one resigned.
They're all there. They're all there. Now, the Labour Party will make a big mistake if they push their initiative for early elections. Because if there are early elections in Israel,
Bibi will win.
And there is no peace process. The two things are there. First of all, I'm not sure at all that the Labour Party is going to win. Barak doesn't have the popularity which
Right.
he wants to get, and it doesn't take off. On the other hand, if we have new elections in the next 6 months, Bibi will freeze the agreement. Why would he? Then we lose on both counts.
That's true. There'd be no implementation. He'll tell the United States that
and then they lose the elections finally, the Labour Party. So what we have to do today is either give the Likud, the Prime Minister, a safety net for the entire length of the implementation of the peace process, 3 or 6 months, or create a cabinet of national unity in which this kind of big majority would be able to work for peace. All the sane Israelis from Labour and Likud would be able to carry it through.
Would Shimon Peres become a minister in that unity government, do you think?
I think that's his dream, yes. That's the only way for him to come back, is by becoming minister in the unity government.
But would the Labour Party allow him to become a minister?
Yes, definitely.
Really?
Shimon Peres controls today about 50 or 48% of the parliamentary group in the Knesset, and many members of the Labour Party regret the fact that they have replaced him with Barak.
Really?
Because Barak is not achieving the goals which everybody thought he would.
What was behind Shimon Peres backed Ehud Olmert, who's a Likud
Right.
member, as mayor of Jerusalem, and he won the election, obviously, but he sort of side-swapped Shimon Shitrit.
Of course. It was very clear.
Why was it?
It was very clear that Shimon Shitrit is somebody who's not going to get any votes, or if he gets, he'll get very few votes. There was no chance, especially for Shitrit, who was not a popular leader. If, let's say, somebody else, one of the popular, loved leaders of the Labour Party would run in Jerusalem, so go to a fight. But why go to a fight for somebody who even failed the prime minister in the Labour Party in a very dismal way, and is not liked by the population? Why would we go to this fight? If we can reach an agreement with Olmert, who tries to continue the moderate policy of Teddy Kollek, it will be much better than running with somebody who had no choice.
But doesn't it look like disloyalty to the Labour Party?
Well, what is more important, is Israel or the party? Do you have always to be loyal to a party, even if it makes mistakes? I think that if Ronnie Milo had run for today for mayor of Tel Aviv, I promise you that we would have supported him, because he was a good mayor, he's a moderate man, his opinions were very close to the Labour Party. Why should we just run against him in order to say, yes, we ran and we lost with honor?
I'm smiling because I had Ronnie Milo on the show.
Yes.
And he came on like a very moderate, sort of ultra-liberal character, you know, and I said, by the way, Ronnie, I remember you during the days of Camp David. You were with Yitzhak Shamir on his knee. And if you remember correctly, Yitzhak Shamir abstained from voting for Camp David. I said, so you were a co-conspirator? And he said, no. I was the guy that ultimately got him to abstain. And you're a historian. You know, history has a funny way of changing facts.
Yes. But Ronnie, I was with Ronnie at the Knesset when he was very, very tough and extremist, like Olmert as well.
Absolutely. He was one of the princes.
He grew up.
He grew up,
yes, and he mellowed and he became much more moderate and a pleasant man.
All right, Israel just had municipal elections. The big winner in the Israeli election business, first of all, the Shas party did very well, which is the ultra-Orthodox party, because these people are really well organized, and especially in Jerusalem. They took over the whole city council in Jerusalem. And the Yisrael B'Aliyah, which is a Russian immigrant party, they did terrific. So they are a real factor in Israel today, aren't they?
Well, first of all, in this election, the people who won were the people who were involved. They went to vote because there was a very low rate of voting.
Yeah, terrible.
The first time in Israel, because generally we are #1 in the world. You know, we have in Israel 80 to 84% participation in the votes. Now, if you take into consideration that many of the Arabs, a general, abstained from voting, we have about 90 to 92% of the Jewish population which goes and votes. And this time we had barely 40%. People were completely indifferent. Who went to the polls? The people who had something to fight for. The Russians, Shas, as you said, and that's why their parties gained, and the traditional large parties were...
The Likud and Labour were wiped out totally. By the way, Yitzhak Shamir on the show a couple of weeks ago predicted that. But what you have to talk about is these secular Jews who scream all the time about everything going against them. They didn't go to the polls.
They didn't go to the polls.
So why should they have anything to say?
Well, that's the point. When you are involved in something and you care about it, you must go and exert your right, of course, and that did not happen. Now, in the future, that's a lesson for everybody, that people, and I've been writing about it quite a lot, people in Israel today are tired and fed up with the two large parties. They think there is too much corruption there. People don't change, and there is a kind of search for new ways. Everybody is looking for a new direction in the political field. And that's a very fertile ground for a new leader to emerge with a group or a movement which is above the parties. And that's what people want to do today with Amnon Lipkin-Shachak.
Right, we're going to cut for a break. We'll talk about Amnon Lipkin-Shachak, who is the former chief of Israeli Defense Forces, IDF. He retired about 3 or 4 months ago, and he's looked upon in Israel as someone who may make a very big political move and would possibly be elected. On the other hand, he's untested. He can't talk yet. He's got a year of silence because he's still being paid by the army. And so he looks great, but we don't know at the end of the day what will happen. So we'll talk to Michael about that. Don't leave us.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high. To have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish.
Weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
We're back. We're speaking with Michael Bar-Zohar, who incidentally wrote the book Beyond Hitler's Grasp, but we're talking about the Israeli political situation now, and he's in the know. He's a member of the Labour Party Inner Circle, and he's telling us what is going to possibly happen after Y plantation is implemented, if it's implemented. And he brings out some very good points. You said something to me now at our break that one of the rising stars possibly in the Labour Party could be Avram Berg.
Yes.
Avram Berg is the son of Yosef Berg. We interviewed him on the show about a year ago. He's terrific. Exactly. He's a very clever guy. Borg is a man who walks around with a kippah, but is very modern and very secular. He appeals to a great element in the Israeli society. He was number 2 in vote getting on a labor list, but Yitzhak Rabin skipped over him and let him drift away. So what he did is became head of the Jewish Agency. Many of you may know him from that, but I suspect that he's a politician at heart. I just found out that Michael had influenced him to become a political person. So does he have a future there now in the Labour Party?
Yes, although that future has been diminished somehow because he went to this side track in Israel, Jewish Agency. But he wants to run for candidate for Prime Minister, and in this term, which means he wants to have another election before the next election, another primary in the Labour Party. He wants to run
against Barak?
Against Barak, yes. I'm not sure that he's going to win against Barak. But the new person who is going to overshadow Barak now is
Shachak.
Shachak
was the deputy to Barak
That's
in
correct.
the Israeli Defense Forces, then became chief of staff. Barak left, became foreign minister under Yitzhak Rabin, told me he was going to make $1.5 million a month when he was here that time, but I'm not sure he made it. Anyway, the IRS in Israel can check that. And that's a little bit of what we call Israeli chutzpah, but it happens to a lot of them. Shachak, tell me, he hasn't said anything though.
Shachak is a very good man. He is very well liked by the population, very charismatic.
Good looking.
Good looking. Trusted. He has a lot of credibility. In all the polls, he is high up with 10, 15 points above Netanyahu and both Netanyahu and Barak. And there is a lot of pressure on him to run for prime minister, but not in the framework of one of the old parties, but in a kind of movement which will be above the parties, national movement which will be able to draw both people from the right and from the left. It's true that he hasn't spoken about his opinions yet, and he doesn't want yet to go to politics. People are trying to convince him.
Rani Milo is trying to get him to go, isn't he?
That's true. Rani Milo made him a very strange, a very
He says,
generous
if you're better
offer.
than me in the polls, I'll let you go ahead of me.
Exactly. And that was very, very chivalrous from Ronnie, because in politics, you know, it's dog eats dog. But Barak doesn't know yet, because for this man, for the first time, he is out of uniform.
Right.
He went for vacation to the Greek islands, to the United States.
Right.
He felt free. He wants to do something for his family.
Right.
He wants to live a little bit.
Right.
On the other hand, you know, there are some
I
moments in
guarantee
history.
he'll run. Don't worry. You have no problem.
Yes, I believe finally is going to be pressure to run, but I believe that he will make a mistake if he goes into one of the parties.
So you think he should go into a center party?
I think he should go into his own movement, yes.
And
because Labour and Likud are
would
cramming
Shimon
down.
Peres join him in a center movement?
Shimon Peres, if he doesn't run himself, he would support Amnon Lipkin.
Is there a faint possibility that Peres might run again?
There is.
I keep saying that on this show, by the way.
Yes, there is the faint possibility. If not that faint, it would depend if there would be a movement for peace, which would elect independently Shimon Peres as its leader and candidate for prime
All right,
minister.
so can we see a party with Dan Meridor, who's sort of an outcast now, and Bibi Netanyahu's Likud, if there is such a thing? We could see Shachak, we could see Shimon Peres, we could see Rani Milo, we could see you maybe. Would you
No,
run?
I wouldn't run myself, but I can tell you that the main danger which Bibi Netanyahu sees today is Lipkin Shachak. And most of the attacks on the
Are targeted
opposition
toward Shachak today?
are targeted toward Shachak. And even his spokesman said it openly. And lately, when Bibi Netanyahu came to sell the Y agreement to the Central Committee of the Likud party, the main attacks were against Lipkin Shachak because he sees how popular the man is. And the man keeps quiet, and his popularity is rising. People don't conceive him as a politician. People are tired of politicians, not only in Israel, even in this country,
Look
as you
at
know.
the Body Ventura became the governor of Minnesota, right? That's sure an anti-political statement, right?
Exactly, exactly. That's what happened in Israel as well, very strongly.
So Shachak has to make up his mind.
And they believe him that he genuinely doesn't want to become, and that makes them even more interested to bring him, because they would know that the man whom you pull by force to get into politics is going to work for the country, not for himself. He doesn't care about his public image. He doesn't run after the media. He doesn't try to rally politicians, and he has very good chances today.
What is the Rabin family doing now? Are they doing anything politically?
The Rabin family supported at the beginning Ehud Barak. But lately, in a very strange interview, they said that they would support Shahak if he runs.
Well, there's an old relationship between the wife, Tali Zellinger, and Leah Rabin. There's a lot of friendship in that family between the two of them.
I don't know about their relationship.
No, I'd say that, well, I think they're very close friends, so maybe they made a U-turn, but does it mean anything in Israel?
Amnon Lipkin was the only person he admired, really, was Yitzhak Rabin. In his office, when I went to see him once, he had the picture of Rabin behind his desk. And he spoke very openly about the tremendous influence of Rabin on his life. There was a personal moment which touched him very much. You know, he got leukemia a few years ago.
Yeah, I know.
He was then chief of intelligence. And it was, I think, on the eve of the Gulf War. So he went to see Rabin. And he told him, listen, I've got leukemia. I'm going to go out under treatment. Yeah. So I'm ready to resign my position. And Rabin said, no way. You're staying where you are. I trust you. You're my man. And this thing touched him moved him very deeply, because he saw...
I understand he researched his own health back. Somehow he researched the whole business and was able to bring back his health.
He got back.
Terrific. Well, so now you know why the Rabin family is boosting Shahak. There's a great relationship there.
Yes.
The question is, you know, Israel has a history of the Dash Party in 1977. Yigal Yagin. And what did he take then about Shmuel Tamir was with him, Meir Amit,
Tamir, Rubinstein, Meir Amit.
Right. And because of that, there was a coalition there between Begin and Yadin.
That's true.
Yadin became deputy prime minister. I remember this closely because we did Camp David about that period. And that moved the whole Israel at that point, because before that there was never a Likud prime minister. It was always labor.
That's true. That was the...
What do you think David Ben-Gurion would be saying today with all this mishmash?
Well, I speak to David Ben-Gurion very often, but he doesn't answer me, you know. Lately, he doesn't answer. He would have been devastated. He would have been, of course, a great supporter of the peace process, because he wanted very much to reach this peace with the Arab countries. And the two conditions which he set for himself as conditions by which we can make peace were realized after his time. One, the one he started with, was the nuclear reactor in Dimona, which was the final proof to the Arabs that they can't destroy the state of Israel. And the second condition was fulfilled during the Six-Day War, when Israel for the first time got assets it could trade for peace. So we have now a new kind of Israel, which Ben-Gurion wanted, one which is strong and indestructible, and one which can give something for peace. That's why after the Six-Day War, Ben-Gurion, who was a private citizen at the time, said for peace we should be ready to give everything except for Jerusalem and the Golan Heights.
Did Ben-Gurion predict that, you know, Israel's pretty strong with population today? It's got 5 million people. Did he think that in the year 2000 Israel would have over 5 million Jewish people, or you have no idea?
I have an idea, because I was in his office when this guy from Look magazine came. They were doing then a survey among all the great statesmen of the world, what is going to happen in 25 years.
Really?
Yes. That was in 1964.
So 1999?
1989.
89.
And Ben-Gurion predicted the fall of the communist regime.
Really?
And the opening of the gates. I remember it very well. We thought he was cuckoo, of course. But he said the people of the Soviet Union would not be able to live in this regime of subjugation, of slavery. They will not be able to withstand for many years this regime. In 25 years, he said, Russia is going to crumble down and the Jews are going to get out. And this was, by the way, reproduced in one of the books about Ben-Gurion.
Really?
I found the entire story, yes, because Luke printed it.
Did he predict that you'd have 5 million people? He thought...
Well, he predicted that the Jews from Russia will come to Israel, so you can believe that out of that you can make the calculations. And, but you know, when he came to Palestine, when Ben-Gurion came to Palestine in 1906, he said to me, my greatest dream was to live one day to see 500,000 Jews in Palestine. There were 60,000 when he arrived. So that was his dream. And he died when Israel was about 2.5 million strong in 1973. And today we have 6 million people in Israel, 5 million of them Jews.
Why is it, by the way, that most all Israeli leaders go down in a non-glamorous way? Golda Meir went down an unglamorous way. Levi Eshkol maybe, Sharet for sure. Even Ben-Gurion.
Yes, Ben-Gurion went down very badly.
Why?
Right?
Any reason for that?
Well,
is that part of the Jewish culture?
Exactly. Well, we are not still a state-minded nation. Don't forget, we have been for 2,000 years among the nations. The state, the government was always the enemy. The leaders were always the enemy. And that's a smart people who knows very well to debate and to fight with each other. And we are such an egalitarian society that we never have enough respect and admiration for our leaders. And he's the leader, come on, I know him. We were together in the army, we were together in school. Everybody knows everybody. So there's a kind of reluctance to accept the fact that this one is bigger than you are, is greater than you are. And the Israeli people who have no tradition of respecting and accepting the rule of the majority, of the democracy, always have something to say. There's the famous word of Chaim Weizmann to President Truman, I think it was, how can you govern a country with 2 million presidents? That's what we have. And always, as you said very rightly, every political leader in Israel has had a bad political ending of his life.
It's all unglamorous. It's terrible. Even Shimon Peres, you know.
Of course. After failing for the fifth time.
He fails. He can't get out. And you know, there's a lot of comments about him. But, you know, I think the guy has still got terrific energy. He's 75 years old.
The greatest statesman we have, living statesman.
If he goes abroad,
Israel.
he's welcomed by every country. People love him. And in Israel, he can't get it going. I mean, it's unbelievable. He just can't get it going. What's going on with his Peace Institute? Are they able to do anything?
Yes, they are now very active in building this huge industrial park on the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip, which is going to be actually in Palestinian territory. And that would prevent from all these workers to cross the border, to go through this humiliating process into coming to work in Israel for Israel bosses and supervisors. They're going to work in the park inside their territory. They're also going in a very interesting project with the barilla, the pasta barilla. You know, the pasta barilla, which is one of the most important spaghetti in the world. They're made out of wheat, which is grown in the desert. So the president of the company is now a member of the board of Shimon Peres. They're going to grow a lot of wheat in the Palestinian territory.
Well, his concept is economics. He wants an economic union in the Middle East.
That you need, he said you need 2 feet, 2 legs for the peace process to succeed. One is the political, and one is the economical.
We got 1 minute left. There's a big question. How do you merge the religious and the seculars today in Israel? It's a huge fight.
I don't think we can merge them. That's a field in which I'm very pessimistic.
Really?
We might go into a confrontation between the ultra-Orthodox and all the others. Because the ultra-Orthodox got drunk with power after the last election when they saw that power got so strong. And I believe we might have to go into a confrontation which might be even violent.
Wow.
In 50 years, in all the surveys, 49 years, the Israelis have said that the main enemy we have is the Arabs. This year, the first time that they say that the main danger for Israel is the fight between ultra-Orthodox
internal polls are showing that. It's terrible. Michael, thanks for coming on again.
Thank you, Leon.
Again,
it's a pleasure.
Another brilliant book. It's called Beyond Hitler's Grasp, The Heroic Rescue of Bulgarian Jews. And it's obviously a great book. He's getting great reviews. And he tells you what's going on in Israel with the Labor Party, at least. So you got to listen. Unfortunately, we're ending the program about the possibility of a real confrontation between secular and Orthodox. Somehow there's got to be some genius out there who's going to try and work through it. Let's hope they'll do it, maybe not by next week, but give 2 weeks. We'll see you next week.